association or partnership. So now to your question, your contention is like, why worship God? Like, why does God want us to worship Him? Is the question, right? So the Quran, first of all, tells us, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I'm not sure if you understand Arabic. Okay. Which country are you from?
Turkey.
Oh, Turkey. A lot of good Turkish friends. So yeah, I mean, the Quran clearly tells us to worship God, right? God says He created us for the purpose of worship. Now, you're saying, why does God want us to worship Him?
Well, that as well as how is it possible that God is considered a kind, like powerful, living?
Yeah,
right?
and then why did He send messengers?
Why is He so powerful? He created all this universe, but then He cannot make us worship Him. Yes,
and you saw that on this banner here.
Yes.
Okay.
Why?
Okay, so first of all, let's answer the first question, which is why should we worship God, or why does God want us to worship Him? Okay, so do you believe in something called objective truth? Like, let me clarify what that is. Okay, like for example, subjectively, like one person can believe that we don't have to worship God. Some person can believe we do have to worship God, right? These are all like worldview, right? That's fine. This is called subjectivity. From an objective point of view, we have to agree. I think we can agree that there has to be one objective truth, right? Either we have to worship God or we don't have to worship God. You would agree with that?
Yes.
Either we do or we don't.
Yes, we do or we don't.
We don't. There's no other way. It's like either we have to worship a God or we don't have to worship God. Let me ask you this. You said you're atheist. So you don't believe in God, but do you reject the idea of a higher being?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so you don't believe there's any higher being, no God? Not at all.
Not at all.
Interesting. Okay, so you're saying if there were to be a God, that's kind of your question, right?
Yes.
If there was a God, why would we have to worship God?
Why does He want us to worship?
Okay. So, interestingly, I think the very simple answer is there has to be objective truth. And how, for example, I'll give you an example of my phone, right? My iPhone. My iPhone was created for a certain purpose, right? Would you agree this phone was created with design and purpose?
See, but it has nothing to do with the concept of God, right?
I'll explain to you this. From the concept of design and creation, this was created, it's made of design. And would you agree that this has an instruction? It does have an instruction. Like Apple engineers, Apple, the company, they released it. When you go back, let's say you don't understand the nature of this thing, where do you go to? You would go back to the maker and the designer. When you go back to the maker and designer of the iPhone, basically it will tell you, you know, treat it this way, do certain things with it, don't do certain things with it, don't put it in water, that kind of stuff. So from that point of view, you have to follow it that way. When we look at the Quran, we look at the Bible, we look at all the books out there, we need to assess and see which is the true word of God. If we can find a way to validate that this book is the word of God, then everything in it must be true. And therefore, God told us to worship Him in a book that we believe to be from God, then what is the objection? What is the contention? Because if God knows that this is good for us, you know, He created us, He designed us, He knows that it's good for us, so what's the issue?
Okay, back to your iPhone, right? When you get the iPhone, right? You know what you need to do, right? Press it, boom, it works, right?
You know, okay, let me ask you this
He
question.
created us. Why? I mean, what is the whole purpose of worshiping? I don't understand.
So let me ask you this. Your shoes, do they have a purpose?
I mean, again, we're talking about human, like our life.
I know we're talking about material.
But we're talking about like God.
We're talking about material things, right?
Yeah.
But don't you think that you can correlate them to us? The point is, everything around
the world, yes.
From a philosophical
concept of God is totally surreal, right?
Your name's Sebastian?
Yes.
Sebastian. From a philosophical point of view, everything that surrounds us has a purpose. Everything. This is my point. I'm not saying that our purpose is, okay, worship God. We can talk about that. But I'm saying we have to agree on this first. Everything has a purpose, right? For example, our shoes has a purpose. The trees have a purpose, right? Even we could say maybe our purpose is to have families, to live good lives, to have friends. Maybe that's our purpose, right? But my point is everything has a purpose, right?
Okay, so what is that?
So the point is, how do we reach objective purpose? How do we reach the purpose that we were really for? The only way you can do that is through an instruction manual, not just an instruction manual, but an instruction manual that was given by the Creator Himself. I think the first thing we need to do, honestly, before answering those questions, is to deal with the belief in God. Because if you don't believe in God, then how can you take anything God says?
But because I don't believe in God, because it's just doesn't make sense. Because
so why don't you believe in God?
When you think about the universe, right? Just think about the universe, right?
Yeah.
could have ever come close to explaining all universe? Who? Like even Albert Einstein, he doesn't know anything. Even though like he might have known.
Well, he's the one that presented the steady state theory of relativity. He said that the universe is basically just always been there. So that's his theory.
Well, there's the concept of universe. Universes, like you can't comprehend in your mindset. There's no way you could comprehend it. What would have happened if God didn't create it or Allah didn't create the universe? What would that like? Can you comprehend the idea of not having anything at all?
You can't.
You can't.
There has to be something.
There has to be something.
We agree with that. But why do we agree with that? Let me tell you something. I'll tell you the Quranic point of view, okay? There has to be something. The Quran says...
So you don't need God for that?
No, that doesn't... That, you can't jump... That's kind of... That's jumping the
one
gun.
More question. When did God... God is an eternal thing, right? He wasn't born. Right?
Well, that's what I'm going to tell you right now.
Okay.
Let me set the criteria and we can talk about it. The Quranic criteria is as follows. It says in chapter 52, verse 35-36, just in the original Arabic, translating it, it says, were they created from nothing? Did they create themselves? Were they created from nothing? Did they create themselves? Did they create the heavens and the earth? Right? And then it says, verily they are uncertain. So what is the criteria of it? It sets a deductive premise, a deductive argument. It says that either, we can apply this to the universe was created from nothing. That's option one, or premise one. The second is that the universe created itself. The third is that the universe was created by something else that was created. The fourth, the universe was created by something that was uncreated. So if we go through this criteria, first of all, was the universe created by nothing? Would you agree with that? That the universe...
I don't know if it's created. I really have no clue because we don't know.
Okay, forget the word created. Does the universe come from nothing?
I don't know if it's nothing. We just
we don't know.
We don't know.
Logically, by what we know,
yeah.
Can something come from nothing?
It does.
How? Can something come from nothing? This is magic, man.
What you're saying.
You're presenting magic.
Yeah, but how's God come to exist?
Okay, but first let's talk about this. Can something come from nothing, right? Like, can this phone come from nothing? Can
not this
you
phone,
come from nothing? Anything around us, can it come from nothing?
I mean, not around us, but I mean, when you think about all that universes, we don't have the answer for that.
Okay, look, I was talking about magic
but
earlier.
because as we said like a minute ago, we can't comprehend what nothing means. If assume that
that's a good
no
question,
world,
actually. What is nothingness, right?
Yeah,
let's talk about
world,
nothingness.
There's no universe. There's no universe.
Would you consider this right here as nothingness? This?
No, it's not nothing. It's not nothing. If
That's
it was
what I'm talking
nothingness,
about.
we could have comprehended.
Exactly. So can something come from nothing? Because even if you do this, you're dealing with this, you're talking about matter and energy, right? So the whole point is...
So how can you think that something is God? Like,
No, I'm not talking about God right now. I'm just talking about the idea of the universe. Like I'm talking about the universe. Can the universe come from... did the universe come from nothing? That's the first criteria.
I don't think it's nothing.
It has to come from something.
Something we can't comprehend.
We never said it's God. We're just saying that the universe has to come from some matter. Agreed? Yeah, I think we can agree on that. Secondly, that the universe created itself. The universe.
I still don't have that concept because creating yourself, well, what does that mean?
So,
because
for example,
comprehend
no, but
logically,
can something, again, we're using the empirical world.
Okay, in our world, yes, I could answer that, but I can't answer that in eternal.
Why? Because the universe is essentially part of our world. Like, our world is part of the universe.
It's endless, right? We can't think about it.
Understood. Agreed.
Like, conclude
Agreed. We're limited in that.
Shape.
We're limited but based on what we're looking at, based on what we know, we can't go off based on what we don't know. Based on what we know, basically something can create itself. Because if something creates itself, that's like saying your mother gave birth to herself, or that's like saying, you gave birth, you created yourself. So if you Sebastian created yourself, that means you have to pre-exist and post-exist at the same time. My point is that the universe couldn't have created itself. So we reject that. And we also reject that the universe came from nothing. The third is that the universe was created by something else that was created. That's the third thing that we're analyzing, right? The third premise. So could the universe have been created by something else that was created? That one, maybe, right? sounds kind of reasonable, maybe. The universe was created by something else that was created.
Before that, it was created.
Right,
so
by
it's like it's like a sort of
exactly. That's what
endless.
that's what
so,
we're trying to
so
get.
why like are we putting that
And
God
that's why
idea?
I'm telling
it's
you.
so limited.
No, I'm telling you. We're getting to the final one. It can't come from nothing. It didn't create itself. Thirdly, it can't be created by something else that was created, because if it's created by something else that's created, what does that mean? We have to ask, well, what created that thing? Only something else, right? Another energy. And so what created that? Another energy. We fall into the absurdity of the infinite regress, the infinite regression, right? Infinity.
Yes.
That's a problem. So we have to reject that. Finally, the only thing that rationally makes sense and naturally makes sense is what? Is that the universe came from something that was uncreated. Something that was always there. Now that, my friend, is beyond the scope of our knowledge, which I agree with you on.
Why do we?
Because this is the idea that God, for something to be God, to be called God, it has to transcend the creation. For God to be God, God has to transcend the creation, meaning He can't be bound by time or space. Meaning God is timeless, not bound by time and not bound by space. Because once God is bound by time or bound by space, it's no longer God. And this is what we need to assess. What is time? What is time? When we look at time, time to us is what? Well, think about time. The rotation of the Earth. What does one rotation of the Earth represent? The rotation of the Earth represents what? Day and night. 24 hours represents one cycle of the Earth. What about the Earth going around the sun? What does that represent? 1 year. If you believe there is a God, that God must be above this. So this is most logical that yes, God must be above this. Therefore, God is above time. He's above space. And the right word is He's transcendent.
Based on Islam, God created this universe.
Well, I just went through the premise. We agreed that the first three don't make sense. The last one is one that seems most logical. Look, we can never say, I can prove that there's a God. What you can say is, I can infer, based on what we have, that there must be a God. It's most logically consistent.
Humanity was created after the world, after the universe. Humanity wasn't there like it was created. So God, at some point, also, let's forget about this time.
That time is for us. In the Quran it says that He created time. God created time. And this is beyond our comprehension. This is the wisdom of God. This is the power. The power of God is just that.
God creates humanity, right? At some point.
At some point.
At some point, He decides.
For us, at some point.
Yes, for Him,
it's an initiation for us, not for God. Because again, God transcends time.
So He decides to create humanity, right? Decides like somehow He wants that kind of.
He initiates it.
Initiates it. It's a time for us, right? It's a time.
For us, yes, it's a time.
For Him, it's also a time.
Not for God, because God transcends time.
But He decides at some point, right? He didn't create us a million earlier.
Here's the thing. It's an interesting thing that you're trying to say. I think what you're trying to say is God is all-knowing. He's all-hearing. He's all-seeing.
He's transcendent. He has no time, but He does also.
His qualities exist with us, but it's not a part of us. And that's what we have to make distinguished. Get it? His qualities are existent with us. His qualities, He's all hearing, He's all seeing, He's all knowing, but He's not a part of us. That's right. Understand that point? So like we believe God is all knowing, all hearing, all seeing. He's the King of Kings, the Master, but He's not a part of us. And that's what happened with the Christians. They take Jesus as what? They've taken Jesus.
What is He doing, man? You're taking a video?
This is the first time you realized?
Huh? No, I noticed it, but I didn't ask.
Yeah, we've had it running for a while. It's just for educational purposes.
But quite frankly, either way I look at it, it just doesn't make sense.
I honestly think, look, we all have faith. You have faith that it doesn't make sense. We have faith that it does. But the Quran, I think, is the Word of God. And because it's the Word of God, everything He does is validated. Even the fact that we worship God.
It's sent by God, right?
Not sent by God. It was given from Angel Gabriel to Prophet Muhammad, given to us. How do we know that? We have a criteria also to validate what the Quran is. We have to have an instruction. Without it, how can you attain purpose? How can you attain? Like, look.
I just don't understand the concept. Like, even if you believe
I'll tell you the
that,
concept I don't understand.
Like we just discussed about it. Even if like you say, okay, man.
Sebastian, I have an important thing to ask you. So after you finish.
So even if we accept all these like things that we can't even comprehend, we conclude that, okay, this thing makes sense to me. There's a God. I don't know what it is. I'm just saying there is God. We can't even define it.
That's fine. You want to call it an energy, you want to call it a higher being, but all
define
we know is that this God designed us and created us. How do you deal with the matter of intellectual design? The fact that we're intellectually designed. We have intelligence in our design, we have complexities, the fine-tuning. How do you deal with that?
So many other animals don't.
What do you mean? All animals have design. Everything has design.
Well, I'm thinking, because we said about thinking, right? Snakes, they don't have...
Okay,
No, but they have design, right?
Yes, they do.
So how do you deal with that? Where did design come from?
Why should we have that?
No, but
Why
that's what
they shouldn't-
exists. Because there is design,
I
it
mean,
points
why-
to... Do you agree that when there's design, it points to a designer, generally speaking? Do you agree that when you have laws, there's a lawmaker? So that's kind of the idea, is if there's design, there's a designer. If there's physical laws, there's a lawmaker. So from that point of view, it makes most sense that there is an actual designer, an actual creator that exists behind all this. But let me ask you this. All the complexities, have you ever heard of Sir Roger Penrose?
Goodbye. Have a nice
Sir
day.
Roger Penrose. Okay, anyway, he said that for everything to exist the way it does today, it must have been 1 out of 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 123. I'm not sure how good you are on math. Big number. 1 out of 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 123. That's the universe. Yeah, but only 1 out of that number would everything come to exist out of randomness or out of nothing. So even Sir Roger Penrose, a great mathematician and physicist, he said it's impossible. There has to be design. Now he necessarily is not someone who believes in God or anything, but he agrees that there's something higher. There's a higher being. That's something that no one can deny. Whether that's matter, energy, God, whole different discussion. And this is what's interesting. You seem more of a positive atheist. There's other people who are agnostic. You seem to be like certain there is no God, right? No, not necessarily. Okay, so you feel like maybe there is, maybe there isn't.
I mean, there are things that I can explain, but it's only in my world. Right? So I thought about it when I was a little kid. So I started questioning a lot of things, right?
And that's very sincere. I think
Age
that's
10, 11, 12, and I think I was like 12, 13, 14, and it's just like I just knew it. Like, there can't be God. It's like there's no way that could be God.
But you see how you just came to a conclusion there. What if your conclusion is wrong?
Because my mind, no, it's not wrong.
But how do you know that for sure? Do you believe? Everyone has faith, right?
Nobody proves. First
But
of
you're
all,
making a claim, right?
No, nobody has seen God. First of all, nobody has proven God. No science can.
Well, you can't. Just because you can't prove something doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah, but you're making it up.
No. There's something called absence of evidence, okay? That's what you're using. It's a fallacy. Just because you can't see it to be true doesn't mean that it's not there.
Another
You understand what I mean?
Another
Do you understand what I mean?
Okay, I got it. Another question. Why God sent a prophet 2,000 years ago, but he fails to send another one? What is the reason?
God sent many prophets, right?
Why
Throughout
doesn't-
time.
Why maybe David Koresh was a prophet?
Well, no, because here's the thing. Once you have a book of,
The US government killed him.
once you have a divine book of God, it tells you which prophets were sent. And from the Quran point of view, it's objective. It tells you God sent all these prophets. Why? For the same mission, to worship the one God. Tell people, preach to them monotheism. Worship one God, no partners or
Why
associates.
not now?
So basically, what do you mean not now? Because
Why doesn't
because
it say now?
the Quran decreed it. All of these questions that you're asking go back to first accepting the Quran. You can't answer those questions until you accept the Quran because you don't wear the same glasses we do. If you have the same glasses, then you'll understand, okay, because the Quran says it, everything in the Quran is correct, it's valid. But you don't have that disposition. You understand what I mean?
Why would I believe that?
So that's what I'm saying. Is first, you have to get to a point where you believe the Quran. Once you believe the Quran, then everything in the Quran is your source of guidance. What is your source of guidance as opposed to mine? Mine, I claim it to be the Quran.
So would
Your-
you say,
Sebastian, I want to ask you
right
this question
now-
humbly. What is your source of guidance?
Okay, would you say this world is going to remain the same 500 years from now?
In terms of
Technology?
no, absolutely not. I'm an engineer myself. I know
Why
for a
would
fact
I
it's not.
believe you when you say Facebook is the best invention ever? That is what I rely on. Facebook is the only source. There isn't going to be anything different. There isn't anything going to be any
There's something in philosophy.
500
Let me
years
tell you,
from now.
there's something in philosophy
Why
called.
would I believe that God will not send a prophet? I want to believe that.
No, I'm telling you.
I want to believe him, so all he needs to be sent is a prophet.
So if you, Sebastian, believed in God and you realize that God sent revelation, and there's one revelation that is from God Himself, and it's pure, the 100% Word of God. If you got to that level, you would realize the Quran says what? It says that we have sent the Prophet Muhammad as a mercy to all of mankind. And it also says about the Prophet Muhammad, he is called the Nabiyyin. He's the seal of prophet. So therefore, that's what I'm saying is once you deductively go through the process, you're still in God's existence. After you finish God's existence, we gotta talk about the oneness of God. It's God 1, 2, 3. After you're done with oneness, you go into revelation. So what you're doing right now is you're skipping talking about the existence of God, and you're jumping into revelation and the teachings of revelation, which I think is a big leap. See what I mean? You have to get to the point where you believe the Quran is the word of God. Once you have, hold on. Once the Quranic arguments have been presented to you, or the Quranic discourse has been presented to you, then at that point you can say, all right, fine, I'm going to get one of. And that goes to my next question: have you studied the Quran? Have you studied the Quran? So don't you think rationally?
No, I didn't study that.
Have you read it?
When I was born
So you were born in a Turkish background. Have you read the Quran?
I didn't read from end to end when I read books.
Little parts, right? Small parts. Have you gotten to the point?
I also did Christianity, the same thing.
So have you gotten to the point where you have said, all right, this book cannot be from God? How so? What made you say this book, the Quran, is not from God?
Because it's just religion itself. We're born with religion. We need things.
Oh, so you're talking more about the philosophical idea because of religion. No, I'm talking the Quran itself. We have to look. We have to be just, right? We have to be fair in our judgment. To be fair in our judgment, we can't ignore it because what you're doing right now again is called absence.
That is scientifically proven.
First of all, we can't use science to validate anything because science changes. You agree? Technology and science change. You can't use that. We have to do something greater than that. That's what I'm saying. We need to have a longer conversation about the Quran, but right now I'm trying to develop some epistemic way.